So I really, really appreciated that someone could actually bring this particular course to the table, and it just really redefined my path in a very clear way. It was a course, and I knew that it involved homework, it involved sessions,
accountability.
There was accountability, and because there was a price tag on it, I understood then that this is something serious. For me, it's a reminder that I this is where my heart resides. Allah is inside of it, and I know I'm a human being, and I'm going up and down. So I must recognize myself. I must recognize my nafs. I must recognize my lower self.
Our prophets and the Sahaba Ikram, the Ahle Bayt, the Sufi saints, that their qalb was in that state of contentment, no matter what happened around them. Every opportunity, everything that unfolds in front of you, truly as an invitation to get further closer to Allah Ta'ala.
Once I figured out that this is my problem, whilst I was doing your course, you talked about the shadow. And when we were experiencing those truth-focused statements, I think a lot of us had major issues because you came, face to face, full on.
And I would start the course and I would be like, Allah Ta'ala, bring through me whatever they need to hear, because I had all this knowledge that I had accumulated from the West, mind sciences, and like you said, mindfulness, and all these tools and techniques and all of those things. And then I also understood, for me, the buck stopped with Allah Ta'ala. With everything, it was like Allah Ta'ala. The ultimate answer is Allah Ta'ala. The banda has been separated from Allah Ta'ala, from Rabb, because of strict dogma or whatever have you. Banda is no longer connected to Rabb. Everybody's right to be able to connect to Allah Ta'ala, and that's really what I'm passionately trying to get this message out. All right, Assalamu alaikum. I am here. Walaikum assalam. Episode of my podcast with a really dear person, a dear friend, I can also say, but he started off as, when I was first introduced to him, as a student of my 30 Days to Transformation course. And it was a wonderful journey. He learned a lot and I learned a lot from him since then. So I'm very excited to introduce Amir Maskatiya to you guys today. He is a law graduate from University College London. He is now a businessman in Karachi. He manufactures cosmetics. His hobbies include swimming, singing, vocal training, Quran tilawat, which I've heard is very beautiful, mashallah, and also tafsir research. He is a father of two wonderful, wonderful children. And I will share with you guys a little bit later on in the talk, which Amir has not mentioned here, that he also sings very, very beautifully, which he calls vocal training. But especially because his singing is about ishq, ishq ilahi. In one way or another, it's about ishq. So Amir, welcome. It's so wonderful to have you here.
Thank you so much, Eram. I really appreciate, and I'm really honored that you've taken out your precious time to speak to me. And I thank you so much for having me on your show.
Well, the pleasure is mine, first of all, and thank you for taking the time out, because, there are few people that now, mashallah, 1,000 people have gone through this course, but every once in a while, somebody's story really touches me and makes me very grateful and humbled that I was able to touch this person's life, even if it was in a small way, because, I feel, like I said, I can learn from you, because in our conversations, since you have done the course, we've had beautiful conversations and so much to learn from you as well. And I wanted to just share these beautiful thoughts with our listeners, because I think there's so much that people can learn, from conversations such as this. So let's begin with, I just want this to be a very candid open flowing kind of a conversation. So, and we can mix Urdu and English, however you're comfortable. Most of the audience of the podcast are comfortable with English. So if you're comfortable with English, that's fine. Talk to me about, what prompted you to join the course, and then what happened? What was your experience with the course?
I think every individual at some point in their life comes to a crossroads where they don't know really which way to go. There's an easy path and then there's a difficult path. And I think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prompts us towards those paths at every stage of our life.
True.
It all depends that at every stage how aligned we are towards Him. And sometimes the learning within the journey needs to be a lot more to come to that realization. And no matter what we do, and no matter how we practice our deen, it's a very subjective thing, because everyone tries in their own way to do things that make them come closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And, I was in search for a self-help sort of a course. And I was looking at so many other things, there were mindfulness courses, there were, and there's so many different variants of it, the CBT related work. And then, but there were very few courses. In fact, I personally did not come to any course, unlike yours, which basically was tailor-made for me, because it brought together all different aspects of the self and related to the deen. And that is what really, really touched me about your course. Because when we're talking about the self, what do we mean by that? And if we're talking about working on the self, what does that mean? And it was relatively easier for me to actually participate in your course, because there were a lot of theories that I did understand, or I could comprehend with, because I had already researched on them. Like, for example, the energy, the frequencies, the therapy with the water and Osho's experiments. So, I was quite familiar with those. So
Emotos.
Yeah, Motos. Yes, Emotos. Yeah. So I really, really appreciated that someone could actually bring this particular course to the table. And it just really redefined my path in a very clear way, because I was a bit uncertain as to how to go about doing it. And because I was on Facebook and I saw one of your ads, and I just randomly, I had no one who had actually recommended this course to me. But when I saw something which was aligned to the deen, and I knew it was not a lecture, it was a course, and I knew that it involved homework, it involved sessions.
Accountability.
There was accountability, and because there was a price tag on it, I understood then that, this is something serious.
Yeah.
I was a bit, and I figured out where people actually are when we started this course, because I could tell from the first course that majority of us were looking at issues that are outside of us.
Events going on in our lives, yes.
Yeah. And I feel that anyone who I personally think that who wants to really take the full impact of your course, in my personal opinion, should be a person who actually comes with a firm belief, acceptance that all the problems lie within ourselves. अगर एक वो belief या इरादा या यकीन होता है, it's very, very easy then to basically then graduate and go to the next level, because there are a lot of times we'll just constantly talk about, oh, he did this, and I'm feeling bad because he said this to me, or if it weren't for this reason, I would be in another place. So I think that hurdle is very, very, very important to actually go through with, because if we do not cross that hurdle, it's very difficult for the actual benefit of your course to come through. So I was very fortunate that I have to go through that.
That's a very, very good point that you're making, because you were already, since you mentioned you were already quite aware of frequencies and energy and how it works. So you had done some level of work on yourself already. Now, majority of people that actually take my course come to the course because they're going through an event and they just don't know how to handle it, right? So it's either something going on with their marriage, or there's something going on with grief, loss, something they have not been able to deal with, anger issues, anxiety issues, such and such. And that's what, in one of the first classes, that's what I say, is that if you came here thinking that I'm going to solve your problems, guess what? I'm not going to do that. But I am going to help you to understand who you are and why these things are happening, and what are the benefits, how do you go through it, so that you will have the tools to then deal with life as we continue on, because the course is going to end in 30 days, but the problems are not going to end. If not this, then something else is going to come up. So we have no choice but to build inner resilience. And it's interesting, typically people go through what we call a midlife crisis, typically in their 40s, because whatever they have known and tried thus far to fix their lives, they realize, it's not working. I need something more. I need to figure out something else. And people that are fortunate, they end up finding some teacher that can help them to connect with their own selves. And like you said, ultimately, the hard truth is it's all within you, because the whole world is filled with people that have one problem or another, but not everybody is having anxiety. Not everybody is making dysfunctional choices. So what is the difference then? And there is a difference. There is an answer. There is a secret. And that is, connecting with one's own self, and then also connecting with Allah Ta'ala.
So Rabia, this connecting with yourself, you just mentioned, there's this old Arabic saying, and when I read upon it, it's the majority of the commentators say that it is actually not a hadith. It's a very famous Arabic saying, something on the lines of the one who knows himself knows his Lord. Yeah. So Imam Ghazali has interpreted it, and a lot of scholars talk about it. But one of the early Muslim converts apparently said this saying, and it's totally in line with the Quran and Hadith. And this one line is, in my opinion, the answer to everything. Because when we say we know ourselves, and then, people, I think, get very confused between what do you mean by yourself? Because when we're referring to the deen, we talk about, there's a ruh, there's a nafs, there's a qalb, there are all these different aspects. So when Allah talks about it, or when the commentators talk about it, what is actually going on, and who are we referring to? So I feel that Imam Ghazali actually laid it down very well. He said that the ruh is a spirit of Allah. The soul is the nafs, the ego, or the shadow that you talk about in your, or an aspect of the shadow that you mentioned in your course. And the qalb, which is the spiritual heart, is basically the vessel that fluctuates between the ruh and the nafs. It's a very beautiful juxtaposition of how we talk about adrenaline and cortisol, how both of these things are needed to survive. So from a physicality point of view, we need those things to survive, but we also need the ruh and the nafs to survive. It's just that we take a very wrong meaning of the nafs, and we fall into the lower self, as what we may call it. So we fail to understand the distinction, and sometimes we get muddled. For me, these definitions are very clear, and it is how we oscillate between them. And how I remember in the course you mentioned how we go towards the light sometimes, and how sometimes we go down. So for me, that's like the Star of David, which we call the Najme Dawood, who I think a lot of Muslims also misconstrue to do with a country's flag, but it's actually very Islamic. And the
used in Islamic architecture a lot.
Yes, it is. It is. And how the upper triangle talks about the divine and going towards the ruh, and how the lower triangle is talking about the lower self, which will be like nafse amara, according to what Adim is said, and how the heart oscillates, the qalb oscillates between the two, because that the famous hadith comes that the Prophet ﷺ mentions that, your heart is like a feather that goes up and down. Sometimes it scatters here, sometimes it scatters there. In the morning, it'll be somewhere, at night, it'll be somewhere else. So he's giving us a direction. I think that is what the Star of David symbolizes, and the qalb is in between. For me, it's a reminder that, this is where my heart resides. Allah is inside of it. And I know I'm a human being and I'm going up and down. So I must recognize myself. I must recognize my nafs. I must recognize my lower self. But we've been created this way so that we can, through our experiences, you mentioned midlife crisis, people could have a loss of a parent or loss of a child. And as we grow older, we come closer and closer to the truth. And that's how the nafs goes from the stage of it being amara to mutmain. And Allah Ta'ala ends it very beautifully in Surah Fajr. Something on the lines, I'm just going, because I don't know the exact words, but something on the lines that, "O nafs, be contented." So he's referring to the nafs mutmain, and enter my paradise. So Allah is addressing the nafs. I want you to
the fact that if you can, there's a deeper meaning to this too, that you can have this, if you can attain this state of nafs mutmainna while you're on planet Earth, then you will have an experience of paradise on Earth. And such was the experience, for example, of our prophets and the Sahaba Ikram, the Ahle Bayt, the Sufi saints, that their qalb was in that state of contentment, no matter what happened around them, because the qalb connected to the ruh, and ruh is connected to Allah Ta'ala, understood that all of this, whatever is happening, it's actually just an illusion, right? So we're supposed to learn how to live in this illusion, because Islam does not, encourage people to go and live out in the jungle or up in the mountain. We are encouraged to live within this inclusion, interact with illusion and interact with people and go through the human experience fully, right? But at the same time, create that inner state that is connected to the divine at all times. And then you get to see every opportunity, everything that unfolds in front of you, truly as an invitation to get further closer to Allah Ta'ala, to keep getting closer and closer and closer. Something good happens, and it is an opportunity to get closer to Him through gratitude. And something that we label as bad or negative or a challenge is also an opportunity to get closer to Him through practicing faith, tawakkul, or razi baraza ilahi. It's all an invitation to basically get closer to Him. For me, that's what I understood, that when people ask me what is the purpose of life, I want to find my purpose. I mean, purpose is a big deal now, right? I have sold courses on purpose in the past. And I've realized those are all passions, and that's fine. You're supposed to follow your passions because they're clues from your soul. But there is only one purpose for every human being. There is only one purpose. And we've been told that in the Quran, that the reason why you were created was to worship God. Now, a lot of people think that over here, worship means the ritualistic aspects of worship. But no, what worship, you can't worship God truly unless you know yourself and you know a part of God, some sense of God. How can you worship Allah Ta'ala without having a connection with Him, without having some level of understanding? And I say some level of understanding because none of us are equipped to understand Allah Ta'ala in entirety. You can't. But still, at least understand some level, some semblance of whatever is right for you. And that's what I want to talk to you about next, because we've had some really good discussions on that everybody has their own blueprint. We are all created with our own blueprints. And within that blueprint is the code, if you will, of how you are supposed to connect with Allah Ta'ala, which could be totally different from how I am supposed to connect with Allah Ta'ala. So talk a little bit about that, please.
So I go back again to that saying, one who knows himself knows his Lord. So I had to sort of like delve into this and experience it. What I truly loved about your course was that it actually helped me identify myself, as in my nafs. So when I could sort of like identify my nafs, I could basically identify what were the reasons or what were the triggers that kept me away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And to first identify that, and B, how to sort of help myself to alleviate myself of that burden.
Because so were those triggers like self-judgments? Is that what you're talking about?
So we all talk about fears, and I know that you touched up a lot on fears and how fears hold us back. And everyone knows of the 5 sort of like core fears that people have. One of them is fear of abandonment. And during your course, a light bulb just went in my head that my actual fear is a fear of abandonment. And every single time that I am placed in a situation where I come face to face with that fear, it's almost as if my automatic system within my digestive system, everything just shuts down. And I sort of, come to standstill. What should I do? Shall I fight? Or should I, the flight fight mode basically goes on, the adrenaline starts pumping. And then, and I could sense that, but I never knew why it's happening. But it's only when you come so close to your fear, and that's Allah's way of putting it, that you actually realize, that I realize that is what's actually holding me back. So, I mean, like my father passed away when I was very young. And, I always wanted to be accepted by my family, by my mother. I always used to feel my brother was, her favorite because he was a sick child. And as children, when we're growing up, we don't realize all these things. But we grow up with those fears. We don't realize that it's the cellular memories of that 7-year-old or 6-year-old that are basically inside a subconscious mind, that because I've had those fears that, oh my God, maybe he might be the favored one. Oh my God, or why is this one getting more preferential treatment? What about me? So, without even understanding the entire concept, the ego just has such a huge impact on us. And I'm referring to myself here, that my ego basically
programs, and then more programming, and the algorithm gets built out.
So the whole, you build this whole persona of perfectionism, and you want to protect yourself, and by being perfect, then you want to please people, and then you see all that adrenaline coming in, that dopamine coming in, but it's not really oxytocin. It's not really the good hormones, because for dopamine, you just need more and more and more and more. There's no end.
You get addicted to it.
It's like an addiction. It's like you're on drugs or alcohol or whatever. And when something doesn't happen the way you want it to happen, or when people don't please you, or when people don't meet up to your expectations, I would rather lose those relationships or make more of an effort to please them. And that's such a huge burden on myself. Then you have anger, all these issues. And another issue which I realized during your course was that whilst I was doing all this, where is my self-love? Where's my self-compassion? Where's my self-forgiveness? I'm too busy looking at other people that I've actually forgotten about myself. So when that light bulb went on, I said, I've had this fear of abandonment at a subconscious level, even though I have a beautiful family. They've all been so nurturing and kind and loving. And although I never felt the loss of the father, but something deep down inside of my programming basically told me that this is your fear. And because that fear of abandonment came, that's why I became like a sort of like try to emulate being perfect without even realizing that perfection is only an attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We can only strive for excellence as human beings. So
or
when
progress. I would
yeah,
even progress. Eventually, make excellence your goal, but strive for progress on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's ahsanu amala, as Surah Mulk says. But once I figured out that this is my problem, whilst I was doing your course, you talked about the shadow. And when we were experiencing those truth-focused statements, I think a lot of us had major issues because you came, face to face, full on. And I think that was my first realization. I was also very fortunate to do this hypnotherapy course with one of my other teachers, and she's a brilliant teacher, and she did such a great job, and I really can't thank her enough. And when you discussed about the Surah Rahman therapy and how the Surah Rahman recitation of Dr. Abu, whose recitation? Qari Abdul, yes, Bassett's. And then then you talk about Shugafta Appa and what her analysis on it was. And because I'd already done the recitation of Surah Rahman, so I knew the tafsir of it, somehow for me, my treatment of the shadow and the EFT that you mentioned, of how to release that emotional freedom, came through a self-hypnosis experience within Surah Rahman, because I believed in the power and the frequency of Surah Rahman. But during the Surah Rahman, all I was concentrating was to approach my shadow through going through self-hypnosis by trying to get to my inner child experience. Now, that is something which may actually be a very difficult thing in the beginning, but because I had actually practiced self-hypnosis, it was very easy for me to go into that state. And when I focused on the shadow and the nafs, I knew that I had to tap into my inner child. So for me, my inner child is my ruh, the wounded spirit that has been locked and caged by the nafs because of the fear of abandonment. So the nafs takes over me, and when the triggers happen, I react because the ego is telling me you have to do this, you have to do to survive, and therefore, so I just can't sort of deal with that. So I need to basically go into a subconscious level. Now, within the subconscious mind, that's how I feel that I could tap and go to my room and basically tell that 6-year-old child or the 7-year-old child who had developed those cellular memories of being perfect, that it's okay. That's where I feel that I could give the self-love.
It's okay not to be perfect. Yeah. I want to point out here, it's very interesting. It's always so interesting to hear the stories of people that have taken the 30 days course, because as I've shared before, that I cannot take credit for this course. This was when I first launched this course. I literally would, when it was time for a class, I would sit down and I would basically Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri. I would make that dua of Hazrat Musa and just say, Allah Ta'ala, please use me as your vessel, because I really don't know what these women need from me, right? I had started the group with divorced women and widows. So in our society, really the most downtrodden and women that have the hardest emotional issues to deal with. And I would start the course and I would be like, Allah Ta'ala, bring through me whatever they need to hear, because I had all this knowledge that I had accumulated from the West, mind sciences, and like you said, mindfulness, and all these tools and techniques and all of those things. And then I also understood, for me, the buck stopped with Allah Ta'ala. With everything, it was like Allah Ta'ala. The ultimate answer is Allah Ta'ala. And while I was in the West, that was something that had really kind of left me restless, sort of something that you were alluding to earlier, that I had the great opportunity and honor of learning from some of the top teachers in the world in the mind sciences. And then I also understood Ruhaniyat, but there wasn't a connection. I wasn't able to make the connection, right? Like they didn't, like here was Ruhaniyat and here was mind sciences. And then I'm trying to sometimes go here and sometimes go here. And it wasn't until, a few years ago that it all came together for me, that I understood it's not this or that. It's basically the same thing and we can approach it from different angles. So you mentioned the inner child, and that is such an important thing because as I teach in the course, that our programming is completed by the age of 7 or so. So whatever experiences one has by the age of 7, that defines through that algorithm how they are going to view life. So even if you're a 45, 46-year-old man, your 97% of your life and the actions you take and the decisions you take and the beliefs that you hold, 97% of it is being run by a 7-year-old child who could be scared, who has a fear of abandonment, whatever it is. So no matter how old we are, unless we have done this work of getting to know ourselves and done some inner child healing, if there was an experience of trauma, and most of us, have trauma. Like I didn't lose my parents at a young age, but I remember that it was very difficult for me when my brother was born, for example, because I was the oldest and I was, the apple of my parents' eyes. And having now someone to share the love with was devastating for a 2-year-old Eram, right? So, and by the way, fear of abandonment was one of my biggest triggers too. Until, and I'm just going to say this, that it was so beautiful that Allah made sure that I got abandoned again and again and again, right? Because ultimately I had to learn that I am never abandoned. People may come and go from my life, but Allah is always there. So, as I teach in the course, fear, you were talking about fears. Fear is false evidence appearing real. So I had all these false evidences that appeared very real to me, broken relationships, friendships, this, that, and the other, which caused a lot of fear of abandonment. But ultimately, through multiple abandonments, what I had to realize was that I was always in the palm of my Rabb. I was never alone. I cannot be abandoned. It's impossible for me to be abandoned, or actually for any human being, because Rabb, as I say in the course, does not just mean God that we worship, or does not just mean creator. Rabb is like that mother who takes care of her newborn infant. The newborn infant can't do anything on their own except a couple of things. Every need is attended to by the mother. That's Rabb. So it's virtually impossible, if we understood it, it's virtually impossible for a human being to be abandoned. And I just want to give a caveat here, because we talked about this too, where somebody has gone into ghaflat so much that now they don't even feel, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, but even then I feel they're not abandoned by God. What is required, just one tawbah, and they will be back in the mercy, in the lap of, merciful lap of Allah Ta'ala. So that was really great insight that you shared. And I want to mention here quickly that Amir has a very analytical, intelligent mind. So the way he analyzes the course and the way he talks about, the way you talk about the stuff, I don't want to get people like, oh my God, do you have to be this smart or this intelligent or this analytical to understand everything in this course? And the truth is, no, because the course itself is going to work on you the way it's designed to work on you. Because I've had women that are housewives and they understood things, they had their breakthroughs, but in very, very simple terms. When you asked them, it was like, oh my God, I feel so close to God because I realized this. And it's a small aha. It's not something, deeply analytical like what you're talking about. But that's the beauty of this, because I keep saying I can't take credit for this course. It works on a person the way it's supposed to, so you took from it what you were supposed to. And I'm amazed at what you're sharing, because I was like, wow, this is great insight. Even I didn't have that. So talk about that a little bit, if you feel like it, that, how, you and I were talking about it, that I firmly believe that everybody's birthright is to connect with Allah Ta'ala, to feel the love of Allah Ta'ala. And that is separated from us, or we are separated from that because of the beliefs we hold, because the culture told us, the environment told us, parents told us, the religious clerics told us, no, you have to be this way or that way. And, you are only loved by God if you are, praying 5 times a day, for example. I'm not saying don't pray 5 times a day. You should, it's first. But you are still loved by God if you don't. This is the part that I really want people to understand, that Allah's love is your birthright, and nobody should stand between that. Right?
Yeah.
Do you agree? Yeah.
Yes, I totally agree. Just touching up on this, it's just very sad to note that in this society, when we can gather so much information, we can have so many intellectually stimulating conversations. But when it comes to the deen, and I'm always mentioning the deen because what people don't understand is
difference between madhab and deen.
Yeah. That the religion is just a component of the deen.
Yeah.
So there's Islam, there's Iman, and there's Ihsan. And what people, you mentioned this earlier, that maybe, you live a life in such a way then that you can see God. So Ihsan is a manifestation of that. Of attaining paradise, because when paradise, with the Quran tells us, Salamun qawlun min Rabbir Rahim, and that is going to be the most beautiful moment in a person's afterlife. But why can we not attain that in our lifetimes? And yes, we can, because there is knowledge from the Hadith where Prophet defines Ihsan, of basically witnessing or manifesting a situation where you see Allah as he's in front of us, whatever we're doing. So he's always there in front of us. So
you're just very aware.
We're very aware. And that is the whole purpose of that mindfulness that, the West talks about, which Islam is talking about. And if every action that we do, good or bad, if we keep him in his presence, that's when taqwa, tawakkul, shukr, haya, sabr, everything comes.
I think it's Dr. Abdul Hakim. I think I could be mistaken. He was a convert who I believe taught either at Harvard or Cambridge. It was a tenured professor, and he converted to Islam. He passed away I think a year ago. But I think I found the most beautiful explanation of taqwa through him. Because a non-Muslim asked him that, your Quran says that the best amongst you are those that have more taqwa. And taqwa means fearing God.
No, it doesn't. I mean.
So he defined it. He said that is one of the definitions, but it's very superficial definition, that taqwa is fear of God. And he said, in my opinion, taqwa is a compassionate awareness of God.
God consciousness. Yeah.
God consciousness, but compassionate, meaning that you have compassion, you have love for God, and you understand that God is compassionate towards you. And awareness, I love that he chose the word awareness rather than remembrance, because remembrance means that at some point you forget. But awareness is at all times. You're constantly aware of the love that you have for Allah Ta'ala and the love that he has for you. That is actually taqwa. And may Allah Ta'ala grant us the ability to attain that, to be in that compassionate awareness of God at all times, because that is heaven on earth. That truly is heaven on earth, because when you're constantly aware and you are, so it's, for me, it's not fear per se. I mean, there is habit when you think about how grand and how great and how powerful Allah Ta'ala is. So there is that habit. But for me, it's more it's not a fear that he's going to punish me, and he's this Buddha Baba who's sitting there and he's going to catch me and doing something wrong. It's more of, I love him so much that, it's like if I had a best friend and I love them so much that I don't want to do anything to hurt them. I would choose my words carefully. I would choose my actions carefully. And it's because I care about what they feel. So, it's like because it's God we're talking about. It's not like we can say God will get hurt. But that's kind of the if I can explain, I'm not sure if I'm explaining myself well, but that's kind of what I feel is what you eventually come to in fear, is like, I just don't want to displease my beloved. It's
Exactly.
as simple as
So it's like, in other words, the fear also for me, the concept of fear is that it's on the day of judgment, and I have to be presented. I have to present myself to my Lord. I'm standing there. First, will he even see me? Am I going to be standing in front of him in disgrace? The whole idea of attaining the position of an Arif is to actually try to attain the level of worshiping Allah just for the sake of, because he's my Lord and I want to worship him. It's like what Hazrat Aisha asked Sallallahu, why do you always constantly are praying all night? You've been guaranteed heaven. And all he said was something so beautiful, something to the effect that, how else will I be a humble slave? He didn't have to do all this. So the Arif tries to attain that position of worshiping Allah without expecting heaven, hell, reward or anything, but because he's worthy of being worshipped as Allah. So when I'm standing there thinking, how is he going to greet me? Is he even going to greet me? Have I shamed myself in front of him? So the fear is he'll be so displeased with me that I'm going to have my head down, like this. I can't even hold my head high. And when you hear stories like, no one can be entered into heaven without Allah's mercy. It's not just Allah's forgiveness. He can forgive you, but without his mercy, that's why Allah says Ghafurur Rahim. The use of those two attributes is paramount, because it's not just with Allah's forgiveness can we be granted that. So it's that khawf is, have I pleased him enough? Have I been a worthy Khalifa of his on this earth? Have I done something? Have I strived enough? Have I been part of the Salihin? Have I tried to correct my character? Or have I not done that? So the fear is, how will he look at me? Not that he's that Buddha Baba, like you said. So my fear is for myself, for embarrassing myself, for shaming myself.
And that is such a beautiful, by the way, I want to mention really quickly, because I forgot to mention it earlier, that at the end of this video, please stay tuned, because we will play one of Amir's beautiful songs, which used to be one of my favorite Nayira Noor songs, but he has sung it, and it is for me, whenever I hear it, it is the Banda calling out to Allah Ta'ala, but I'll have you explain it later at the end, how you actually perceive it and sang it. And I can tell you guys, since Amir shared it with me, I think it's been 6 weeks now, I think I listened to it every day, because in the beginning I couldn't stop crying. The yearning of the Ruh is so strong in your voice as you sing it. It's palpable, you can feel it. And it's for me, I know this is something that can get fatwas, but for me, that's ibadat. That's ibadat, because your focus is 100% on Allah Ta'ala at that time. And when you are so focused on Allah Ta'ala, no matter what you're doing, it's ibadat. So I wanted to come back to the point that you made, and this is so beautiful, because you have that element of khashiyat, right? This is like khashiyat from your Rabb. Won't call it fear, but it's this khashiyat, right? Of humility in front of Allah Ta'ala. And which we all have to some level, but I want to speak to this point, because we're all different, and that's one of the things I talk about in the course. We're all different. Our makeup is different. Our blueprint is different, and Allah Ta'ala has said that however you perceive me to be, that's how you will find me. So I am like that illiterate Bedouin who came to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam at one point and said, "Oh Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who is going to judge me on the day of judgment, you or Allah?" And Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam smiled and he said, "Allah Ta'ala." And then he said, "Okay, then I'm fine." You know? So I am like that illiterate Bedouin, because the Bedouin was talking about, what we call zarf. It's like the way I see it, because I'm like always in front of Allah Ta'ala, beseeching him, like, Allah Ta'ala, main tooti phooti hu, main gunahgar hu, main to hui, mera to beda hi garak. I cannot go right in anything. I constantly go in front of Allah Ta'ala as a broken, imperfect person, acknowledging my imperfection all the time, and yet asking him for his friendship, calling him my best friend, right? As I openly say in the course also, that I have, the day I heard this particular thing, that Allah, you will find Allah as you perceive him, I'm like, okay, I'm going to perceive him as my best friend. I, as I've said in the course, my brain works with shortcuts. I'm always looking for hacks in everything, right? So this is my hack for the day of judgment, that Allah Ta'ala, if I was calling you my best friend constantly and tried to practice it to the best of my ability in everything, either it's gratitude or it's Raza Baraza Ilahi, constantly as best as I can, then if I called him my best friend in this 3D world, and then I'm a guest of Allah Ta'ala's on the day of judgment, uska zarf bahut uncha hai bhai. वो उस वक्त क्या मेरा best friend नहीं बनेगा? That's what I'm hoping for.
I just wanted to add, sorry मैं आपको काट रहा हूँ, because
नहीं,
otherwise I'll
it's
forget
okay.
this point. You mentioned Allah's friend, right? One point I wanted to just bring into this conversation is Allah is actually giving us a very big hint how he'll help you being your friend. He's always our friend, but he's giving us human beings, me, you, all of us, signals as to how we can actualize this true friendship. And Allah mentions in the Quran, I don't remember the exact place, but something on the lines, verily my friends are those who do not experience sorrow or fear.
Yes, or fear.
And I should always be with them. And that is completely linked to our nafs and our inner child and our self. All comes back to the self. If I'm experiencing sorrow, I'm thinking about the past. Kash, I wish I had done this. Oh, this friendship didn't work out because of this. I'm constantly in the past. And fear, if I'm always thinking about the future, what is going to happen? What if I can't send my child to university? Oh, I might need to make so much money to have this status and to buy a car. Others people will not think much of me. This is all my ego talking to me, making me live either life in fear or in anxiety. So at all times, in the present, in the now, I'm only being mindful of the states that I'm not in. So how will I remember Allah then? How will I remember Allah? How will I show gratitude? How will I forgive myself? I'm constantly engaged in those thoughts. So Allah's telling me that I can be his friend. He's always my friend. But I can be his true friend if I don't live in those states. And that comes to the journey of the self. And a course like yours, which I feel helps us tap into these things. So for me, that ayat of the Quran is fundamental. It's life-changing.
It is. And it's so interesting that people, this book became a bestseller. He's a best-selling author, Eckhart Tolle. He wrote the book, The Power of Now, and everybody went crazy about, wow, what a concept, and wow, what insight. Quran said it, almost 1500 years ago in this one ayat that you're talking about. Because if you are in sorrow, you're in grief about loss, then you are in the past. And if you're in fear, you're in the future. And power lies in the present moment. Because if you think about it, I don't want to get too, scientific right now. I don't want to geek out on that, but time actually does not exist. It's how this dimension is translated by the human brain. So actually there is only now. And And that's where our power lies. So whatever has happened in the past, let's say we've done things that we're not proud of, in this present moment, we have the power to wipe the slate clean by asking for forgiveness, doing tawbah. And if we are kind of future tripping and there's a lot of fear, then again, the power is not there in the future. It's here in this moment now, realizing and understanding that everything in my life has been controlled by Allah Ta'ala. We have maybe a 7 to 10% role that we play in our own lives. There are events that are predestined, they're going to happen. It's our job to understand how to respond to those in a manner that basically move us closer and closer to Allah Ta'ala. So that was another point I wanted to make. I feel like you want to say something. You've been holding
just
back.
on the predestination, there's a very interesting thing you said, because, a lot of us question that if everything is predestined, why even make the effort? If he has actually destined this particular course, then why am I making this effort? There's this argument that goes on. But I think what people who of the deen, if they tap closely to it, it's actually about co-creating our life with Allah, in the sense that Allah has given, since we were born, or even before we were born, from the Alam-e-Arwa, there are millions and billions of permutations and combinations of every little thought that goes into our mind. And only He knows that. The minute He instills free will within us, He is like a silent partner who steps back, let us make those mistakes out of our free will. The choice will be given to us, even though He will know what choice we will make, but we don't know what that choice is. But by making the right choice, and that is when we come closer in acceptance of the self, we will steer towards the right course. Yeah. And that's where we define our destiny. In that now moment, because we don't know what lies ahead, and every little thing that we do, if it's like that book in which you turn to page 42, you're in the hole. If you turn to page 86, you're free and you're on a flight. We used to read these books when we were young. It's literally like that. At every stage, that crossroads will come. It's how we define that moment, which is true to ourselves. And that will depend on which stage we are with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's like the light is always there, but we've kept the veil of heedlessness in front of us.
How many veils have you been able to remove? That's really the question and the quest. And I want to say something else here. Qadar is defined beautifully through this example of Hazrat Ali, Raziyallahu ta'ala anhu, when he was traveling. He went to some place and he when he got off his horse, he had to go inside the building. He asked, there was a man standing there and he said, will you watch over my horse? And he said, sure. So when Hazrat Ali got done with his business, he came out and he saw that the man had disappeared with the, what do you call what goes on the horse? I'm losing it right now.
The saddle?
The saddle, thank you.
Yeah.
So he had disappeared with the saddle. And so Hazrat Ali went to look for him in the bazaar and saw that man, coming back after selling, having sold the saddle. And he stopped him and he got scared. He said, don't be scared. I just want to ask you, how much did you sell the saddle for? And he said, 2 dinars. And he said, this is qadr, because I had thought when I went inside the building that for watching over my horse, I'm going to give him 2 dinars. So those 2 dinars were written in that guy's taqdeer, that he was going to earn 2 dinars that day. That was qadr. How he was going to get it was his free will. So he got it through theft, which is a sin. If he had resisted that, he would have still gotten the same through halal. And this is a very, very important concept for risk, for, striving for risk, because our risk is written, It's you're a businessman. I'm an entrepreneur too. It is one of the things that gives me so much solace and peace, because business goes up and down. It happens all the time. And then I remind myself that every last dollar that I'm going to earn till December 31st of this year is written. It's coming my way. You know, I think there's a hadith that says risk follows you like moth. You will get that risk. So that's written. And the only thing I'm supposed to do is make an effort in the way of halal and keep making an effort. But as far as how much I'm going to make, that's up to God. That's never going to change. And let's say I'm supposed to make let's say $100 in a day, but I ended up making $200, but my qadar was 100, I'm going to lose the other 100. It's not going to stay with me.
Yeah.
So it really takes the pressure off of the rat race, you know, in a really big way. Is there anything else you want to talk about, Amir? We've kind of, I mean, I can continue talking to you. It's fun, but it's about an hour. Are you good on time?
Yeah, I just wanted to just add a bit on the self-hypnosis experience that I was having.
Yeah.
And I just felt that when you know, it's like watching that movie Inception.
Mm-hmm.
If you can just go in that kind of a world, it's so easy to actually tap into experiences which are just, I would feel like life-changing. And the kind of experience that I had with my inner child, with my Ruh, and I saw that was wounded initially, you know, it was wrapped in bandages. It was in a very deep, dark corner. It was my face to face with it. It made me realize how much I had actually not focused on myself.
I'm curious, did you do that inner child exercise because of watching one of the other ones I did with a participant? Is that when you did that?
I tapped into it by looking at all these are all clues. The shadow work, the EFT, the self-hypnosis course that I did with another teacher of mine, and the Surah Rahman experience. It all basically brought it all together. And my face-to-face with my fear of abandonment. It just made, because we talked so much about fear that I never saw it like that. I never saw it like that my triggers were there. But what I want to do, what I would like to share with the viewers is that hypnotherapy, if one can do self-hypnosis or learn self-hypnosis, in my personal opinion, is such a beautiful technique. And I feel that because of the subconscious mind, the other techniques didn't work for me. And when I did that, it actually tapped into my inner child. It made me actually experience with my Ruh, and I'm talking to it, that little child, that little Amir, that like he actually told me that, where have you been for so many years? Why didn't you come earlier? Look at me, look at my state right now. And that's such a, it's really difficult, especially people who become very emotional to deal with something like that. They may not want to experience.
It is. When I lead people through an inner child healing, that first meeting with the inner child is very painful, because to see this thing, the child is.
So, but you know, like what I want to share is that when a trigger sort of comes now, I just need to close my eyes and sort of like experience that, and just tell him that it's okay. I'm here with you. You don't have to worry about anything. So, you know, I see him in fields and in gardens, and he's in a much better place right now. And I just feel that this technique really helps, especially with the Surah Rahman, because
share that, please, because I was very intrigued to hear how you do self-hypnosis now in the swimming pool. Share that one, because I think that's beautiful.
So in the swimming pool, what I do is that, you know, when we talked about the water and the experiments with water with the Japanese scientists, because 75% of our body contains water, I feel that if we are in a body of water, the frequencies that will be aligned within and without us will be quite different than when we are outside of water. So whilst swimming, what I do is I put my hand on the ledge of the pool, and I put some music, which is either on the 528 hertz, and there are a lot of music that's on that, because I do vocal training. I can sort of like make the chord And so I can sort of visualize that. And it's been known as the frequency of love, the frequency of the universe. And whilst I'm doing
And
it,
it's very healing.
it's very healing. So I close my eyes, I go into a sort of state of self-hypnosis. I put my right hand on the ledge. For me, that is manifestation of Allah's tawakkul, that He's holding my hand wherever I go. And then I just slowly walk in the pool from one end to another end. So it's like sometimes the pool becomes deeper, sometimes it becomes shallow, sometimes I feel cold, sometimes I feel hot, sometimes there's debris on the bottom of the pool, so I could feel the kachra, the kankar, the stones or whatever. Sometimes I could smell food, sometimes I can hear birds chirping. All these different sensations become so strong because our eyes are shut. And for me, that is the hayat dunya, the distractions of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll feel cold, so I'll feel a bit, jittery. Sometimes I'll feel warm, I'll be more relaxed. So these are all these.
You're training your mind to stay focused on the fact that Allah is guiding you
Through everything.
Yeah, beautiful.
And because I'm in a body of water, I try to align my frequency by reciting either the Darood or just one attribute of Allah, something very simple, or a small dua, or it could be just the Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar. And whilst I'm reciting this, especially Alhamdulillah, I focus more on gratitude for what Allah has either withheld from me or not given to me, as opposed to what He has given me.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Because when we concentrate on,
He turned away from you. Yeah.
Yeah, because usme bhi to there's gratitude in that. What
Yes, exactly.
I might pray for something to happen, but if Allah doesn't give me that, it just makes me go back to that Aap Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's dua. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana. But when we're talking about fid dunya hasana, it is not as per my standards, what I think is right for me. It is as per the standards of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What He deems appropriate, what He wants to give me, which means He may not give it to me, or He may choose to give it to me later on, or He may give me something completely different. Either way, it's for my benefit. And that's where the whole concept of tawakkul also comes. I'm 100% sure, and my belief that whatever state I'm in is the best state. So by
only
practicing,
only khair from Allah.
So when I do this in water, it has a huge impact on me, because the water frequency, as I'm reciting this, sort of matches with the frequency that is inside of me. So it's a very
and there are, like you said, there are experiments that have been proven that the frequency that you are emitting through your thoughts, through spoken word or whatever, is impacting. It's actually changing the structure.
Cellular structure. Yes, the cellular structure.
Yeah, it's changing it at a very subatomic level. So you are essentially making the whole swimming pool like a healing bath, because you're emitting those frequency of tawakkul and trust and gratitude. And I also want to comment here that, this is what I constantly tell people in my courses everywhere, that whatever works for you, this is like, it's such a beautiful way of, whatever works for you, but do it consistently. That's the key, because you need to, we talk about neural pathways a lot in the course. You need to train your neural pathways to work in a certain way so that it becomes automatic. So in the beginning, just like when you are, if you haven't done any bicep exercises, the first time you're only going to probably be able to lift a couple of pounds, and it's going to be hard. The reps are going to be not that many. As you continue to build that muscle, pretty soon you're going to be doing, 20 pounds or whatever, and multiple reps. So the same way, the brain has to be entrained. The neural pathways have to be made, and that's through constant practice, discipline of doing something consistently. Now, this works for you, and this is something you enjoy doing. So you do it as much as, you can, because then eventually what's going to happen is, even when you're outside of the swimming pool, which probably happens to you now, it's going to be very easy for you to go into the state of tawakkul or gratitude or whatever have you, because now the neural pathways are made. For me, I shared with you guys, for me, and this is what I really miss right now in Pakistan, by the way, was when I would be driving in Dallas and I would have music on. Again, for me, music is the language of nature. It's mathematics. Some people really, really respond to music. It's hurtful to hear that, oh, music is haram. It's the language of the universe. Some people, their ruh just connects. And I'm not talking about toxic music, rap and stuff where they have abusive language. There is definitely frequencies involved here. So you want to be careful what kind of music you're listening to. Is it healing music to the brain where, the brain is coming into balance, as they have, again, done experiments that, certain musics will make the brain go completely out of coherence. So that's not the kind of music you want to listen to. But anyway, for me, it used to be when I would drive and I would be, because, you go into a meditative state when you're driving, because, I'm talking about the US. So you've got freeways that are, several hours long, and you can drive without having to honk and, give way to rickshaws or bicycles or whatever. So you kind of go into a self-hypnosis state. Yeah. And for me, pretty much all songs that I listen to it's between me and God. So I used to love it. That's when I used to get a lot of epiphanies. That's where I would feel very connected, which I miss because I don't drive in Pakistan. But Allah Ta'ala gave me another way, which is like talks like these, that there would at times be during class that suddenly I would feel this very strong energy come in, and then I would know I am now in a trance-like state. I don't know what I'm saying. Hopefully it's good, but then I would be in the state of flow. That's what people have also called it. So these are all different ways of how you as a person can connect with Allah Ta'ala and feel that deep connection and love. And some people are fortunate enough to feel it in namaz. I don't. For me, namaz is first. I got to do it. I don't feel connected to Allah Ta'ala during namaz. Maybe, hopefully, one day I will. But it's in these other states where my focus goes 100% on Allah Ta'ala. And that too is worship. That too is ibadat. I have talked about it, I think, before, that I think it was Maulana Wahiduddin who said this, that one of the highest states of worship is tawassum, which is basically just sitting and pondering on the workings of the universe, of nature, and how Allah Ta'ala has created all of this, and just being in awe of, wow, this is just amazing. That this pondering on nature, I believe, this tawassum is what led to all those discoveries that Muslims made in the earlier centuries. In every field, it was a Muslim scientist that discovered it. It was because they would read the Quran in that state, also in that state of awe and tawassum and just pondering. And then, of course, it is Allah Ta'ala that puts the thoughts in your head where you go and you discover something, right? So that was really important. And that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to have this conversation with you, because I feel, Amir, that one of the biggest crimes that have happened over the last few centuries is that the banda has been separated from Allah Ta'ala, from Rabb. Because of strict dogma or whatever have you, banda is no longer connected to Rabb. And the peace, the contentment that one gets, even if they're connected in a little bit, because we have this notion that in order to have that contentment, we must be very pious people, we must be perfect. And that is not true, because none of us are. Even if those people that you see and you say like, oh my God, I wish I could be like them, and they're so pious and they're so good about their prayers, if you get to know them well enough, you're going to discover that they're not perfect either. There's something that they don't do well, but you actually do quite well. So it's everybody's right to be able to connect to Allah Ta'ala. And that's really what I'm passionately trying to get this message out there, because in this upper class or the elite society, we see that disconnect a lot. We see it everywhere, but I see that a lot because they feel like, I have my life in these compartments. I have fashion, I have this, I have that, travel, adventure, fun. And then here's this little compartment called religion. And in order to be in this one, I have to give up on all this. So maybe I'll do it after 50, maybe after 60 or whatever. And the truth is, no, come into this compartment as much as you can right now. And whatever else is going on, it can go on, and have faith and trust that as you fall deeper and deeper in love with Allah Ta'ala, other things will also come into alignment. You will naturally begin to let go of certain things that are going to displease your beloved.
But here's the thing, for me, it's not a compartment, because religion can be seen as a compartment, but the deen is a way of life.
Yes, it's
so
all
how you choose to lead your life will define your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with religion being one of the aspects. It doesn't mean that just because you pray or you have conduct a religious practice doesn't mean that you can't also enjoy life.
Yeah.
There have been many incidents that have been cited that we need to enjoy the things that Allah has given to us.
Provided in the dunya. Yes.
You have to.
Absolutely.
So we can't
be grateful for them.
Once we start compartmentalizing this aspect, we don't actually, then we've compartmentalized Allah.
Yeah.
You can't
cannot
compartmentalize
Him. And once you take it out of that perspective and you realize that it's the whole way of life,
yes,
deen actually becomes really easy.
Yeah.
It's not hard.
Yeah.
It's not hard. Whichever level one is at, wherever you are at, it's not hard. And it gets easier and easier as you continue to go on that journey. So it's been so fantastic. We're going to now play your beautiful song. So tell us about that a little bit, and what was your thought process behind, singing this?
So, as you very rightly mentioned, how you find pleasure in music and how you connect yourself with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For me, that has been my journey in music. And it all started with when my father passed away. I, give a tribute to him. It's one of Faiz Ahmad Faiz's beautiful poetry, Raat Yun Dil Mein Koi Hui Yaad Sataye. And I was so touched by that poetry that I just wanted to pay a tribute to my late father. And I got some good reviews. People really liked it. And I explained, and it was something that I was giving a tribute to him. So my mother once told me that, Beta, why don't you start doing some tilawat also? And I said to myself, that should be easy. And I found that to be the most difficult thing, because there's a concept of tajweed, there's the breath, and then there's a stress on a certain mud, and it's very, very difficult. But that laid the seed to start singing. Also, and then I viewed every song of how it connects with my root. And this song that you're referring to, because I was fortunate and blessed to have a short time with the late Nayyara Noor. She was, she is, because I feel that the soul never dies. She is the most beautiful, one of the most beautiful, one of the most compassionate, one of the most gifted, and I think one of the most underrated. I mean, she is a maestro in her own rights. She never really was. She was never really for the dunya, because that's how she kept herself. So whatever little opportunity I got with her, and whatever she would tell me about things, she would say things like, she once told me, Beta, jab wo kuch sunai nahi dega na, to sirf ek hi awaaz sunai degi. So I said, Nayyara Appa, kya hai wo? She said, who? And I said, what is she talking? What is this who? At that time, I had no idea. And when I reflect on all those things, she was a different person. She was not for
I
this
didn't know
world.
this about her. No wonder I've been in love with her voice forever, because
And it was
I
just so
could pick up on
melodious.
the frequency of spirituality. Yeah.
So when I wanted to do the songs, Kahan Ho Tum Chale Aao, Mohabbat Ka Taqaza hai, the one that you're referring to, and when I did your course, for me, it was a way of trying to tell myself that the journey for me is the juxtaposition, the interaction, the battle, the reconciliation, whatever you want to call it, the journey between the nafs and the ruh, the ego and the spirit and the soul, what do you want to call it? So I thought of 3 songs that I've listened through since my childhood, and how I started a series of journeys. So I started a journey called the Journey Towards Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So I sang a naat and I explained a few things first, and then I sang the naat. Then there was like a journey towards Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. So I explained a certain concept which I thought was important, and then I sang a hamd, trying to explain that the meaning of what I was trying to say. So I thought, fine, let me talk about a journey of pain, which I have not yet started, but I've recorded 3 songs. One of them is, which when, in the 90s, when I was growing up, there was this movie called Ashiki that came out. And there was this love song called Ab Tere Bin Jee Lenge Hum. For me, that's a manifestation of a reality where I'm face to face with my nafse amara, the lower self, the blaming self, who's always blaming the other person. Wafa maine ki, tune ki bewafai, always blaming, looking outside of us. So that for me, that song is a recognition of the nafse amara. So the journey of pain for me starts with the recognition of the lower self, which I will first explain and then sing this song. Trying to tell the audience that once you've recognized the lower self, which is the nafse amara, you need to ascend to go to the nafse lawama state, which is the conflicted self, where most of us are usually there. Shall I do this? Shall I not do this? Or we do something bad and we feel guilty about it. It's like the yellow light at the traffic signal. Shall I or shall I not? Damned if I do it, damned if I don't. I feel the remorse, but I also do good things. So for me, the nafse lawama is the in-between stage, which the song Kahan Ho Tum Chale Aao is, where the nafs and the ruh are having this dialogue. The whole song is divided into 3 antras. The first antra is Tumhari berukhi ek din hamari jaan le legi. So for me, there's a nafse amara saying that, because you're upset with me and I'm the ego and I need to prove myself to the body, I'm going to do things that are going to hurt the body because you're upset with me. We're not in union. So I continuously harm the human form. The second one is when the nafse amara wants to come to the lavama state, and it actually tells the ruh, na jaane kis liye duniya ki nazrein phir gayi humse, tumhe dekha tumhe chaha, qusur iske siwa kya hai. Here the nafs is telling the ruh, I want to come close to you, and when I come close to you, guess what's happening? People are not interested in me. All the hoo-ha, the glory, the ego, trying to prove to the world, I'm stepping back from that and I'm trying to come to you. And in this process, when I come close to you, the world doesn't know me, but I'm okay with it. So the nafs is in that conflicted self. And then the third antra is about the nafse mutmaina, where I'm always forgetting the last antra, but something that jitni bhi gham hai, unhe khushi mein gaya hai. So no matter what obstacles come my way, good or bad, are all good, because now I'm mutmeen, I'm surrendering to you. So I feel that this song, Kahan Ho Tum, is a beautiful song where all 3 states are defined.
It is beautiful. And I know you've explained these different stages before also. And when I start listening to it, for me, it's just me crying out for Allah Ta'ala, Banda crying out for Allah Ta'ala. So the invitation is that let the viewer listen to this with focus on Allah Ta'ala and the love ultimately for Allah Ta'ala, and let this be whatever it ends up being for you. because I've tried many times to listen to your audios again, and it's like, okay, this one is about this and this, and my brain just refuses at that time, because as soon as it starts, kahan ho tum, chale aao, and khas taur pe ke ghame duniya se ghabra ke tumhe dil ne pukara, and that's, by that time I'm crying. It's like, oh my God. And I know that Allah Ta'ala is with me, He's not left me, but there is some maza aata hai thoda nakhra karke, thoda gila karke, it's like, it's one of those things that with your lover you complain that I need more attention, I need more of your love. So we're going to play that for our viewers in just a second. But I also want, before I let you go, Amir, share with our viewers, because you have a beautiful channel, your songs are going to be there, and whatever comes up as you release it, that too will be there. You also did beautiful tafsir of Surah Mulk during Ramadan, and you do tilawat also. So can you share your YouTube channel? And we will put it in the description also, so that those people that want to go click on it. But go ahead and tell us about it, please.
So it initially started with me dedicating that song to my father. And as I was releasing videos and Quranic recitations, I also started doing some tafsir in trying to explain concepts that were important to me as a reader. Obviously, no one can interpret the Quran. No one has the capacity or the ability to. We can only, perhaps as human beings, in our own limited ways, interpret the essence of the meaning of the Quran, which,
or our own perception.
Our own perception. That is why we have different tafsirs. So I read up on different tafsirs, and whatever I can understand from them or the concepts, I try to interpret them. So they're also on the channel. And I've got a lot of songs which I have recorded, and I've taken a different shift. I'm going through journeys. So sometimes I'll be talking about concepts that are particular to those journeys, which will be followed by songs that will express my point of view. So if I'm, for example, talking about the journey towards Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the first episode in my YouTube channel on that journey was of adab, how to respect Allah, to Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And then that has, and during that concept of adab, I refer to the Naat that I'll be singing as episode 2. So this was Tu Amir Haram, Main Faqir Ajam. So I'm talking about those concepts of why is it important? Why does that come into the concept of adab? And then in like episode 2 will be the Naat. So then there'll be an episode 3, which will be another concept. And episode 4 would be like a song. So I have a concept song within the journey. So I've got many songs that I've developed, and I'm going to be putting them in different categories. The journey of love, the journey of Allah, the journey of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the journey of pain, the journey of sorrow, because you have to distinguish between pain and sorrow. The journey of pain is important for us to recognize that because there's pain, Allah wants me to rise. But when I go from pain to sorrow, I've actually fallen into a step lower, where the veils of ghafla are even more. So it's a way of sort of understanding where I am in my life.
Beautiful. And what is the name of your channel? So give our viewers.
So that it's YouTube, and it's just Amir Maskatiya. You can research me on youtube.com/Amir Maskatiya, AMIR.
Yeah.
Maskatiya. And I just have to make a few more playlists to make it a bit more.
Okay.
But I am not a professional. I'm not a singer. This is not my line of work. I only do this out of passion. My knowledge is very, very limited. I'm just a student, and I'm just learning as every day.
You are humble. The music is beautiful. The singing is beautiful. I can tell you that. And yes, continue being humble. That's great. And, well, I don't know. We're just, at the time that we're recording this, it's May 2023, but who knows when people are going to be watching this, you may have many playlists by that time. So thank you so much, Amir. It was wonderful having you with us, and we're now going to play your song.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
सानी धनी धा पा मधनी मनी धनी रे गा रे नी धनी रे सा तुम्हारी बेरुखी एक दिन हमारी जान ले लेगी। तुम्हारी बेरुखी एक दिन हमारी जान ले लेगी। कसम तुमको जरा सोचो, कसम तुमको जरा सोचो कि दस्तूरे वफा क्या है। गमे दुनिया से घबरा कर तुम्हें दिल ने पुकारा। कहाँ हो तुम? ना जाने ना जाने ना जाने किस लिए दुनिया की नजरें फिर गई हमसे। तुम्हें देखा, तुम्हें चाहा, तुम्हें देखा, तुम्हें चाहा। कसूर इसके सिवा क्या है। गमे दुनिया से घबरा कर तुम्हें दिल ने पुकारा है। कहाँ हो तुम? मिला जो हम ज़माने से, मिला जो हम उसे गीतों में गाया है। गमे दुनिया से घबरा कर तुम्हें दिल